Hi, Aisha. Thank you so much for joining and agreeing to share your journey with the Dig Group. Really appreciate that, and your time as well. So maybe we should start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name's Aisha Lysejko. Well, I say my last name because people read it and never know how to pronounce it. And I am the head of service delivery and employer engagement at the Brokerage. I oversee all the work that we do there with our young people and with our corporate partners, and I've been there for about a year. However, I've been working in the social impact space for about 7 years now, focusing predominantly on young people, issues around employment, social mobility, as well as innovation. And I've done numerous roles from kind of like the program management and working directly with young people, but also doing a lot around the kind of business side in terms of scaling operations, finance processes, all the way to the thing that I like a bit more in terms of people, culture, recruitment, and D&I, having worked on D&I strategy inside an organisation as well. So, but my journey actually started prior to working in the social impact space, having studied law and being called to the bar. And it was that experience of realizing really quickly that to be successful, that I would have to change or hide parts of who I am and have to be in that constant battle to
Yeah.
prove myself and prove that I was as valuable as my more privileged peers. And facing all of that kind of prejudice and discrimination that really led me on this journey to have a career that was all about trying to achieving social justice and social impact.
Yeah. Oh, no, I totally get it. And wow, sounds like you've been on such a roller coaster journey from kind of an
Mhm.
emotional and, you know,
Yeah,
like understanding everything as well in a way.
yeah.
Um, why do you do the work that you do? Why do you enjoy it?
I think, funny enough, if you said to me like 10 years ago or even 3 years ago, would you be doing this work? I'd probably say no. I wouldn't have imagined this. But the role that I do now, especially, is definitely like that kind of full circle, um, coming back to where I started. And I think there's two reasons. I think about this in the context of, well, it's definitely in my heritage, my family. From a Jamaican family. My grandparents came here as part of like the Windrush generation, and they
Same
were,
here, actually. So
yeah. So for my family, there's a lot of nurses, a lot of social workers, a lot of community activists, youth workers, and so I think that's definitely that element is in my DNA, my heritage, very much. But then also, I think it's the work that I do at the moment is a lot about being the person that I know that I needed, and a lot of people like me needed when I was younger. And that's
oh,
also something that we hear a lot of a lot of the people that work at the brokerage. And that's because growing up in the Midlands, in a small city, where I was one of the only few young children of colour in my school. Um, Also, really living in a very deprived area. I lived in and went to school in one of the most deprived areas in the country. Only 11% of kids passed their GCSEs when I finished school. So
so it must
having
have been.
experienced all of that, but then to come to London to want to pursue my career and then being in the workplace and then feeling the most acute discrimination that I've ever experienced in my entire life, whether it was directed at me or to people that were like me, that's really what spurred me on to want to do something about it. And I know the impact that doing this work can have on people's lives. And so, yeah, that's definitely why I do this work. So when I heard about the brokerage, when I heard about its mission and its ethos and how it shares its knowledge to support young people, yeah, I had to be a part
You
of
know,
that.
I'm bought. I'm sold. I'm in. And can you tell me a little? I mean, obviously we've had a few conversations now, but can you tell us a little bit more about kind of the work that you do at the brokerage and what those mission and ethos is?
Yeah. So I like to refer to the brokerage as the best kept secret in social mobility because we've been around for 25 years and we've supported over 80,000 young people to connect with employers, but not enough people know about us. So I'm glad to be able to kind of talk a bit more about us now. But we definitely work at that intersection of class, being a social mobility charity and working with working class young people. But because we've been historically based in London, 90% of our candidate pool of our young people that we support are from a Black, Asian or minority ethnic background. But all of them meet that kind of social mobility criteria in terms of having received free school meals or being the first in their generation to go to university. And so what we do at the Brokerage, we design and we deliver programs that introduce young people to corporate careers. We then support them with employability skills. We help them to access corporate opportunities, work experience, internships, traineeships, entry-level roles. And so we do all of that, and we've always done that, and that's been our kind of like bread and butter for a long time. So that's where we have our kind of real like deep knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
But in the last couple of years, we've gone on a strategic redirection, and we've really looked at our mission from a systems thinking perspective and gone, well, really, where is the biggest lever that you can pull to make the most change? Like, who has the power to make the change? And obviously, it's not with the young people, it's with the companies, because they're the ones that are doing all the hiring, they're the ones making the decisions. And so now we've got a two-pronged approach to achieving our mission. And on the one side, we still continue to do all of that great work supporting young people, but a huge part of our work now is to support corporate partners, how we put it, to break the corporate mold. And so we believe that if true change is going to be achieved, there's a lot of practices that need to be implemented in an organisation so that young people can arrive and thrive. And I think that's the big bit that I think is often missing. A lot of the work is done to attract underrepresented talent, but then you're kind of just dropping them out the door. Then what?
Yeah, like, right. Where's the retain piece, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we are always thinking about. We're thinking about the full picture and how we can support that with all of the knowledge and insights that we have as a result of working directly with young people. Because another thing that I always think about is this, because we've looked at diversity and inclusion for a long time, it's been traditionally thinking about women. And then we've gone thinking about, okay, women and ethnicity more recently. The social mobility piece is just so overlooked. And I'm hopeful because we're hearing it being spoken about a lot more now. Yeah. But nonetheless, it means that a lot of people haven't been thinking about this extra layer, hasn't been thinking about this intersectionality, and definitely haven't been thinking about how this relates to young people. So that's why, as the Brokerage, we're quite in that that unique position, is that we have all perspectives, we can see all pieces of the puzzle because we're situated quite in the middle of it, having both of those relationships with the young people, but also with our corporate partners.
Amazing. And it sounds absolutely amazing and exactly what people need right now. Could you give some advice on how companies could perhaps be more or be impactful with their ED&I strategies?
I think the first place to really start is, again, if you take that systems lens view and go, well, where are all the unequal outcomes? Why are the unequal outcomes happening? And it's as a result of policies and practices, and those policies and practices just have bias built into it. I think it's something that people have started to feel a bit uncomfortable about talking, this word bias or this word prejudice or this word privilege, because it's quite loaded and people don't quite understand exactly what it means. But I think one of the first places for us to think is that we just, as human beings, naturally align and have a natural alignment to people that are similar to us. And so when we're thinking about what works for people that are like us, we don't think about, well, how would that have an impact on people that are maybe slightly different? And I think that's the kind of the starting place to think. Yeah. And so if we're going to try and remove the bias from the system, we have to start about removing bias from the people. And when it comes to young people that are from working class backgrounds and people that are people of colour, there's a lot of negative connotations because this word disadvantage gets used a lot, right? And so we go, all right, these young people are disadvantaged. Now, as soon as you're using that word to describe a young person, you're just looking at that. You're looking for it. You're not thinking, oh, how has this young person got so many strengths? How have they got all this potential? How have they gained skills along their journey when they faced disadvantage, when they may have been brought up in a context of disadvantage, but how have they used that to their advantage? So a lot of the research around bias says, okay, well, unconscious bias training doesn't work. Fine, so what does work? And that is more work around producing counter stereotypical examples. and spending time learning from people who are different and learning from their experiences. And so that's what we really recommend at the brokerage. It's getting employers, people with decision-making power, people hiring managers, line managers, to spend time doing work where they get to interact with really ambitious, talented, motivated young people, see them for their strengths, see them for what they've got to offer. And that can go from kind of those like typical one-off interactions like insight days or kind of career workshops, which is okay, but the best kind of thing you can do is kind of have that long-term interaction, whether it's a mentoring program for a number of weeks, or when you're bringing young people into your organization on a work experience program or an internship basis for as long as possible. And that way you're getting multiple members of your staff to really meet, see how talented they are, see the great questions that they ask, see the great work that they do. And all of that starts to build to help people to go, actually, no, these young people aren't disadvantaged. Or sort of say they're not defined by this idea of being disadvantaged. They actually have so much to bring to the workplace. And that then allows people to think, okay, now how can I change what I do to make sure that I'm accommodating for the needs of young people, and also making sure that they remove any barriers that are there. And because it's not easy, it's not straightforward, it's important to have that buy-in and to really feeling that you're invested as to why you're doing it, because you've experienced the talent that these young people can bring. So that's something that I definitely highly recommend. But the key thing to all of that is getting to know young people and listening to them. And I think that's a big thing, and a big thing that comes through at the brokerage is that we listen to our young people and we use that information and insights to help companies to make the changes that are required.
Amazing. And no, you're exactly right. I think listening to young people, I mean, I'm still considered a young person myself, actually. So, I know how much I'd value being listened to, and I really enjoy it when my MDs actually do take note and listen to my advice, as well as obviously take theirs on board. And I think it's just really important. And then last question, just in terms of the corporate partnership side of things, could you give us a little bit more insight there? And perhaps, if anyone in the group or corporate speaking would like to get involved, how could they maybe go about that?
So we work on a partnership basis. We think it's really important to have like a deep intrinsic relationship with the corporate partners that we support. And we offer a range of services through to the kind of more light touch for people who are at the beginning of their D&I journey. You might want to just do that initial, I'd like to meet some young people, I'd like to do some workshops to get to know them and things like that, all the way through to a really full strategic support in terms of their D&I strategy when it comes to social mobility and early careers talent. So that can range from, as I mentioned before, mentoring programs, work experience programs, helping to design and implement those, helping to source interns, helping to source for entry-level roles, for graduate schemes, and really doing a lot of the support, both helping the employers design their processes and practices to ensure that the assessment processes are as inclusive and equitable and designed to get the best out of young people from a less advantaged background. And also more innovative programs. I spoke a lot about the kind of insights and listening to young people. And we now do a youth insights program that allows for companies to say, in fact, actually, I'm going to put it to you. Have you ever been in a situation where you're like, why am I just not getting people applying for this role? Because I know that I've had that on so many occasions in various different roles. Like, I'm trying to get, especially if you're trying to get underrepresented people, you're like, well, why are they not applying? You can't ask them because they're not applying, right?
Yeah.
So
no, I've been in that situation. And I must admit, from that, I then had to go around kind of, obviously like training, learning about the way I write adverts, making sure that they don't have language in it that detracts talent who are, of a certain gender or of a certain ethnicity. And then the other thing that I've done is actually headhunt. And rather than kind of when someone's come back to me and said, actually, I'm not interested in a role with X, whoever they may be, rather than kind of leave it there and go, do you know what? Great. Thanks for letting me know. Move on, which I think is because we are so busy, and as recruiters
Mhm.
you're working on more than one role, and I think that is kind of the general thing is they're not interested, right? You move on, or you say like, look, come back to me if you are open to new ops.
Yeah.
But what I've tried to do is dig a layer deeper and actually say, well, why not this organization then?
Mhm.
And I think that's proven some really interesting answers.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a bit of a debate to have because maybe they've got an outdated notion of that company, and that's may have how they've been 10 years ago, but actually they've moved on.
Mhm.
And other times I think I'm like, okay, you know, I accept where you're coming from, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I think, and obviously the answers, sometimes it comes down to money, sometimes it comes down to the culture, sometimes it
Mhm.
comes down to not feeling like they'd fit in, for example. All
Mhm.
these answers are very, very different. There's not
Yes.
one quick fix. But yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
that's
And it's exactly that where we like as I said, I've been in that situation before, and we were starting to have conversations with our employers, and they're kind of going, oh, we put this role out, we put out this apprenticeship, or we put out this grad role, and we've just not had the kind of diversity in applicants that we were looking for. And so going to one of the brokerage's values, we're like, well, we're people centered, we're youth led, and we're insight led. So the kind of natural thing there was to kind of bring those things together and say, okay, well, why not just ask the young people, ask
yeah,
them? And so now one of the things that we offer as part of our partnership is that it's just that it's that opportunity for people to come together from the organisation, get a group of really talented, motivated, articulate young people who are on their own career journey that are also currently looking for jobs to say, well, the reason why I wouldn't apply for this job is because X, because, I look at your website and I don't see any representation, or, you've not said what this progression could be for this job, and money is really important, and my career, where I'm going to get to is really important to me, and just those little nuggets. And we could definitely in the brokerage tell a lot of our employers this information, but hearing it from a young person that you want to employ, the type of young person that you want to employ, tell you that, and hearing 5, 6, 7 of them on a call all saying the exact same thing, well, at that point it's a no-brainer. And
yeah,
I think it's given organizations that confidence to say, I know what to do now because I've been told, and I've got the confidence. Because if you haven't got people in your organization that can talk from that lived experience or from that perspective, it's really, really challenging. So
tricky. Oh,
yeah.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights. It's been absolutely amazing listening to your journey, and I think you're an incredible person. So just keep doing the work that you're doing, keep that passion there, and I really look forward to hopefully getting you involved in a few more dig things. No hints
Definitely.
there, but
Definitely. But Ebony, back at you, because
yeah.
you're doing some great work as well. And so, yeah, here's to more to come.
Oh, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.